Welcome to Awesome Sauce Poetry Talks. Today we're going to analyze war poems by the legendary Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Who is this guy? Born on 27 February 1807 in Portland, while Maine was still part of Massachusetts. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow grew up in the thriving coastal city. His father, Stephen Longfellow, was a prominent Portland lawyer and later became a member of Congress. He was interested in writing poetry, so he traveled to Europe to learn the languages and writing style. He participated in the Civil War in 1862. Unfortunately, his second wife, Fanny Longfellow, suffered fatal burns when the candle she was using to seal packets for her daughter's curls ignited her dress. She died a day later. This made him have a great responsibility with intense grief. He also suffered trauma from the Civil War because he was wounded in a battle. Now Longfellow coped with sorrow, plunged himself into literary work. Today, we are going to analyze two poems by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Aftermath, which was published in 1873, and The Nameless Grave, which was published in November 30, 1875. These poems probably have an influence on his sorrow because the Civil War affected him greatly. We're going to focus on imagery, tone, mood, connotation, denotation, and symbolism. The theme of The Nameless Grave is the destructive effects of violence and hardships of war on the soldiers, their loved ones, and others. This poem captures the sad truth about war and the fate of a forgotten hero. In this poem, there's a lot of imagery, symbolism, tone, mood, and connotation, denotation. But before we dive down into the waters, we must learn about the background. It is significant. Background of the poem. This poem was most likely talking about the Civil War, when Longfellow was serving for the Union in 1862. He was injured in the Civil War. He is writing about the horrific experiences during the war and the effects of war. A nameless grave. A soldier of the Union mustered out is the inscription on an unknown grave at Newport News beside the Salt Sea Wave. Nameless and dateless, sentinel or scout, shot down in skirmish or disastrous rout of battle when the loud artillery drave its iron wedges through the ranks of brave and doomed battalions stormed the redoubt, though unknown heroes sleeping by the sea and thy forgotten grave. With secret shame I feel my pulses beat, my forehead burn when I remember thou hast given for me all that thou hast, that life, thy very name, and I can give thee nothing in return. When I was reading this poem, I could sense that the tone of the passage was very dreary and kind of sad. I also felt that the author wrote honestly. He does not exaggerate, overcompliment, or add any unnecessary words that will muddy the image of the poem. He wants it to stay an authentic war poem. Oh yeah! This poem is written in sonnet format because it has 14 lines. This was personal to Longfellow because it was written in sonnet format and it was about his son who had been severely injured in the Civil War. This poem was a commemoration to remember him, but it has scarred Longfellow forever. This shows the destruction of war. Poem analysis. In line 1, a soldier of the Union mustered out. In this line, a Union soldier has been discharged of service. This implies a fallen soldier being taken out of an active soldiers group. The second line is the inscription on unknown grave. Using this inscription on the grave shows how little is known about the soldier. He is a mystery, gone forever, never praised for his whatever achievements he may have gotten. He is not even commemorated or even honored. This relates to the theme because war makes people isolated from society, and this is harmful. In the third line, at Newport News beside the sea salt wave gives the audience the setting of where the grave is located. He also uses imagery to show the setting of the place and make the poem more realistic. Newport News is located in Virginia. Virginia was one of many major battlefields in the Civil War. In the next 3 lines, 3 and 4, lists out the possibilities of what may happen to the soldier. Line 3 states nameless and dateless, sentinel or scout. A sentinel is a guard or watch guard for the army. A scout is a military unit. The next line, shot down in skirmish or disastrous rout. A rout is a group of soldiers. The connotation of disastrous has a negative feeling, which contributes to the tone. When I was reading this, it was very sad, but more depressing when the inscription bears no dates of the soldier's existence. He could have been a great soldier who died for others, but unfortunately he is quickly forgotten, and this is heart-wrenching. The connotation of nameless and dateless make the poem sound sad, because we cannot give anything in return for his service, and he is forgotten. In the next lines of battle, when the loud artillery drave. In these lines, Henry is creating an image that is graphic but realistic. Artilleries are weapons that are big, usually cannons. Drave here is the past tense of drive. He chooses this to make the poem flow and rhyme. This scene makes the reader see the horrific experiences during the war, gives the reader a bloody battle. This imagery contributes to the theme because it shows the effects and destructiveness of war. Line 7 states, its iron wedges through the ranks of brave. Henry creates this very graphic image of soldiers dying. This talks about the violent actions of the artillery. In the next lines, endued battalion storming the redoubt. Storming here means violently rushing. A redoubt is a safe place for soldiers that are under attack. This imagery creates a picture of ill-fated soldiers retreating to a safer area. Doomed contributes to the connotation because doomed has a negative feeling to it. It contributes to the negative tone of the poem. The next lines are focusing more on the individual who died, though unknown hero sleeping by the sea. Sleeping is symbolism for peace and death. In the lines 10 to 12, in thy forgotten grave, with secret shame, I feel my pulses beat, my forehead burn, when I remember thou hast given for me. In these lines, Henry is feeling sympathy of the soldier, and us feel sympathy for the unknown soldier. What he means in these lines are basically, the soldier died for me, and here I am, my own pulses guiltily beating. I do not even know his name. As he sleeps in an unknown grave, I realize that he has given me his life as well as his name. I display my name here and my pulses still beat because this unknown soldier of the Union mustered out is lying here without a name. This is the secret shame. If I feel ashamed, so should you. The poem ends sadly with, all that thou hadst thy life, thy very name, and I give thee nothing in return. This is a very good way to conclude the poem because it ties in all of the meaning of the poem. What he means by this poem is the soldier gave his most valuable possession, his life, to serve for the country. Unfortunately, he gets nothing in return. This shows how war makes people isolated from society. Aftermath. Background. This poem is most likely tied to his second wife's sudden death. This poem is also tied to the Civil War because that was when his second wife, Fanny, died during the Civil War era. This is also a sonnet.
Aftermath. When the summer fields are mown, when the birds are fledged and flown, and the dry leaves strew the path, with the falling of the snow, with the calling of the crow, once again the fields we mow and gather in the aftermath. Not the sweet new grass with flowers is this harvesting of ours. Not the upland clover bloom, but the rowan mixed with weeds, tangles tufts from marsh and meads, where the poppy drops seeds in the silence and the gloom. In the poem Aftermath, aftermath can be defined in two ways. 1. Signs or results of an event or occurrence considered collectively, especially of a catastrophe. 2. A second mowing or crop of grass from land that has already yielded one crop earlier in the same year. As you can see, Henry uses doublespeak to show that the poem is about war, and war is destructive, and the changing of the season can be symbolic. And the first two lines introduce the subject of the poem: when the summer fields are mown, when the birds are fledged and flown. These passages are very symbolic and have a lot of imagery. And the summer fields are symbolic because we usually view grass and trees as life givers because they produce oxygen. Grass is also associated with life because it is very lush and green. The symbolism of when the birds are fledged and flown can be interpreted as young boys and men that are ready for war. We can connect to this as if young boys that are mature enough to find the war. Fledged in this means being able to fly. The next lines, and the dry leaves strew the path with the falling of the snow. These lines are also very symbolic and create an image of the cycles of the seasons. As we can see, the tone is starting to change from a lush sweet grass to dry leaves and falling of the snow. Changing from a joyful tone to a dreary and cryptic tone shows a sign of tone change. This is very important. The dry leaves in this line represents dead soldiers laying on the ground because winter is about to come. We know that a war has begun because aftermath usually associates with a catastrophe. Also, winter is associated with death because winter is very harsh and cold and can kill life. In the next three lines, with the calling of the crow, once again the fields we mow and gather in the aftermath. In the line with the calling of the crow represents the symbol of decay because we view crows as decomposers since they eat decayed stuff. Aftermath in this means a period of time after a bad and usually destructive event. This is talking about war because the dead soldiers are being eaten by the crows. And the next two lines are not the sweet new grass with flowers, is this harvesting of ours. Henry makes clear that the effects of this war is irreparable. It can never be fixed. The scars of the war can never be healed. Not the sweet new grass with flowers. This represents that life is never the same. The war has not made a difference or improved life. It has destroyed life. And the next two lines are not the upland clover bloom, but the rowan mixed with weeds. This means instead of beauty, happiness, and life, we get negative outcomes such as sorrow, pain, and destruction from the outcomes of war. It also means that after the war, you will be left with destruction, chaos, and death. This is tied to the theme because it explains the consequences and effects of war on mankind. Instead of these beautiful flowers, you get these ugly, disgusting weeds. And the last three lines are tangled tufts from marsh and meads, where the poppy drops its seeds, in the silence and the gloom. Tangled tufts from this passage most likely means something is in a mess and never can be fixed. This reference could probably tie to family where someone has lost a loved one, especially after a war. The next line, where the poppy drops its seeds in the silence and the gloom, shows isolation because these words are mostly associated with the definition of isolation and alone. And we usually view gloom and silence as if someone is isolated and alone because they are mad at something. Henry uses this powerful imagery to show the devastating effects of war. The mood and tone of aftermath. On this slide, I show you the poem because I'm going to use the reference of the poem to talk about the mood and tone. The tone of this poem is gloomy and cryptic because Henry wanted to show the consequences of war, dealing with death and isolation. Tone words that contribute to this are gloomy, crows, weeds, dry, and tangled. All of these words have a negative connotation and a negative feeling to it, so it most likely contributes to this dark tone. The mood gives readers a dark feeling about war and its devastating effects. The phrases, calling of the crow, falling of the snow, not the sweet grass with flowers, the rowan mixed with weeds, tangled tufts from marsh and weeds, all of these phrases contribute to the connotation of a negative and sad feeling. Connecting the two poems. Both of the poems have the same motifs, which are war, death, and isolation. Since Henry published these poems around the same year, it shows that he was in a bad time. He is writing about the horrible experiences of the Civil War and the loss of his second wife. Both of these poems deal with the symbol of isolation. There are two types of isolation that the two poems address. The first isolation is during a time of great grief, and the second isolation is during war. Henry felt intense grief when his second wife died, and this affected him greatly. He also felt intense grief when his youngest son got severely injured in war. All in all, poetry is super awesome sauce because there are many interpretations based on your own perspective. Awesome Sauce Poetry Talks out. See you next time.